What's up, everyone? Christian Saez here on the DNVR Rockies Podcast, and today we have a special show. We're reacting to the World Series. We are talking a little bit of Rockies baseball, and hopefully Drew Goodman gets the chance to join us. We're waiting for his call here later in the show, so we got a lot to unpack here on the DNVR Rockies Podcast. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Toyota Lounge here at the DNVR bar. It is a beautiful, what day is it? Wednesday afternoon here in Denver. It looks like it's going to start snowing out there. October is in full swing. I know Kale is probably pumped up because the slopes are getting some snow. It's one of those days here in Denver.
Got 3 inches last night. We are living.
It is one of those days here. Look, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember this. Last year, on this day last year, we had that like freak little weird snowstorm that popped up out of the middle of nowhere. Denver got like 6 inches or something like that of snow. I was seeing videos on my phone of my dogs running around playing in like a blizzard, it felt like. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We don't have any snow coming down outside yet, but if you're up in the mountains, it looks like we're going to be getting some October snow, which is nice. It only took till the end of the month of October. I haven't lived in Colorado for very long, Kale, but is it normal for it to wait this long to see snow in Denver? And we still haven't seen it yet.
We usually get an early storm right around Halloween. I like this is honestly about when we get the first snowstorm every year.
Okay, so we're about on time.
Yeah, but the season has shifted later and later. It seems to when, not necessarily when we get that first snow, but when we start to get like real precipitation, seems to be coming later and later every year now.
Hey, we'll take it. It's about that time, right? I mean, we've been we've enjoyed the nice sunny weather for ever, it feels like. And now it's time to get some nice cold weather. So look, we got a lot to talk about on the show today. Like I said, hopefully we can hear from Drew Goodman at some point in this show. We'll see when he calls in. We're going to be talking about, this World Series, going to be sharing some memories and conversations about, Charlie Blackmon and his retirement and what that looks like for the Rockies moving forward. We're going to look ahead to what next year might look like for the Rockies and just kind of be unpacking some of that stuff here soon. But look, I got to start by talking about this World Series because the Yankees on the verge of elimination yesterday with their backs up against the wall somehow and somehow found a way to get their bats to life. They ended up getting the win 11-4 in an elimination game. One of the first times in recent years that we've seen a double-digit score put up in a World Series game, which is awesome because we haven't seen that from the Yankees. And I had said coming into this show that, look, we're a Yankees podcast now. I can't just fathom rooting for the Dodgers, and I don't like the Yankees by any means, but when the Yankees are playing the Los Angeles Dodgers, then we got to kind of go for the Yankees, right? So I'm hoping that the Yankees can continue to make things interesting, and I'm hoping that continues to be a trend. They found their bats last night. Aaron Judge was able to get a hit, got off the slump there a little bit. Anthony Volpe hitting the grand slam. Yankees fans were fired up. We had that crazy fan exchange between Mookie Betts and the fans over on that right field foul line. We're going to get into that there in just a moment. But I wanted to share an interesting thing that I read, and just a little backstory on me. I teach classes online, for a college here in Colorado. And one of the classes I'm teaching right now is Business of Radio and Television. And we're in this weekly module that our learning topic of the week this week is sports and entertainment and how the sports world has direct ties into pretty much dictating how the world of media works. And, we're talking about sports revenue and how that impacts TV ratings and all of that kind of stuff. And I saw a really interesting article come out. I believe it was Awful Announcing, the Twitter account, Awful Announcing, posted it saying that before the game yesterday, talking about how if the Dodgers had ended up sweeping the Yankees, Fox Sports would have missed out on roughly $150 million in ad revenue because of them anticipating, their sales team, their sales executives anticipating those games the series to go at least 5 games. And I had read in the article too that they had said, they were kind of cautious on their projections because you don't want to assume, although you would love to see the series go 7 games, you don't want to just assume that the series is going to go 7 games when you're budgeting for this World Series as a sales executive. So they had kind of budgeted for about 5 games, which is what they ended up getting. But before the game started, if the Dodgers had ended up sweeping last night and getting the win, Fox Sports would have missed out on $150 at least in unrecognized ad revenue. Their ad space was going for roughly around $500,000 per 30-second ad spot, which is absurd. So I sent that to my students because I just thought that was a perfect example of just how impactful sports is on the TV and radio industry, and it shows how volatile this industry can be. And we're a perfect example of that here at DNVR. We have a sports bar downstairs. If you guys aren't familiar, we've got a sports bar downstairs that pretty much runs based off of when there are big moments and big exciting games, series, events happening. So when the Avs and the Nuggets are in the playoffs and both of those teams get bounced in the first round, we're all sitting here at DNVR thinking, oh God, the bar's going to be empty for a while, right? There's that thing in the back of your head that's just like, from a business standpoint, you want the Avalanche and the Nuggets both to have their postseason runs go all the way to the championships, both from a business and a fan standpoint. So Fox was in that boat yesterday. I know the executives were probably letting out a sigh of relief after the Yankees were able to get the win yesterday, and the Dodgers fell in that game 11-4. Now, there was a lot of big storylines that came out of yesterday's game. And what is Aaron Judge going to be able to do? Is he going to be able to jump back up on the horse and get his bat coming back around? What's the pitching going to be like? This is a bullpen game for the Dodgers. Are the Dodgers going to be able to execute in this bullpen game? And while all of that was good and well, those are all great storylines, I would say arguably the biggest storyline that ended up coming out of the game yesterday was the Yankees fans. This New York fan base that has made it very challenging for the rest of the world who hates the Dodgers, the majority of the baseball fan world that hates the Dodgers, to say, you know what, we can root for the Yankees. Because the Yankees fans have shown time and time again that they are not the greatest group of fans, to put it lightly. To start, you had some hot mics pick up some fans during the Stand Up to Cancer moment, breaking the silence, yelling, "Freddie, you suck," during the Stand Up to Cancer moment, which if you aren't aware, and this shouldn't be an excuse no matter what, but Freddie Freeman has a parent who passed away from cancer, and so despite that, that's terrible on the fan base to be yelling those kind of things during a game. But then on top of that, we had the whole Mookie Betts, fan trying to grab the ball out of his glove situation. And if you didn't see it, basically what happened is there's a foul ball going over into the bleachers. Mookie Betts is running over there. He kind of leaps over the wall and he reaches over into the stands and he catches the ball, like fully caught it in his glove, closed the glove on top of it. It's not like he snow coned it. It's not like it was bouncing around in the air. Full on caught the ball. It was an out. And then the fan who was sitting right there reaches his hand in there and literally, like, I mean, you can go on DNVR_Rockies on Twitter. I have a very perfect picture of it where you can see this fan with all of his might, all of his energy, like prying the glove open. I mean, I'm talking like when my dog whips up a piece of goose poop off the ground and I'm trying to pry his teeth open to get the goose poop out of his mouth. Like, that's the vibe that this fan had. I mean, he's just ripping Mookie's glove open. And then the other fan who's sitting next to the guy reaches in and says, you know what? I'm going to help you, buddy. I'm going to grab Mookie's other wrist so that Mookie can't grab. I'm going to basically put Mookie in handcuffs here so that Mookie can't grab the ball or grab his glove away. Mookie, meanwhile, is pretty much like on his tiptoes, standing up there on the bleachers with his arm hyperextended. And, you know, luckily, yeah, there's the picture. Thank you, Kale. You know, yeah, you could see a perfect picture there. I mean, Mookie's arm is outstretched. We're lucky that Mookie didn't get hurt here. You know, where he didn't like hyperextend his forearm. Because can you imagine the conversation we'd be having if Mookie's wrist got sprained or his elbow hyperextended? Like, I mean, this guy has got all is using all of his force, this Yankees fan, to get the glove off of Mookie's hand. And Mookie's trying to get the glove back because he doesn't want to lose his glove into the stands. Because I would argue that if Mookie loses that glove, forget the ball. If Mookie loses the glove in the stands, he's not getting it back. Or it might take a second for him to get it back, right? And so regardless, like, that's what happened. Now, afterwards, I think the biggest shock for me was the fact that everyone kind of laughed it off. I mean, Joe Davis, the play-by-play broadcaster for Fox Sports, who I love Joe Davis. You know, I was critical of Fox's decision to put him on the broadcast, given the fact that he's the play-by-play guy for the Dodgers throughout the regular season. But that aside, that's my only critique, and that's not even Joe Davis's fault, right? Like, he's done a good job of being anti-biased. Like, Joe Davis is a pro. But even Joe Davis kind of laughed and was like, hey, that fan is putting his best foot forward. He's trying to get the ball out. Like, I was shocked at the nonchalant attitude that the media and the fan base, you know, or the baseball world had initially. If you look at, like, John Boy, and granted, those guys are Yankees fans, but they were laughing, you know, about it, like, you know, kind of like, hey, look at that guy. Like, at least the fans are showing up. They're trying. But I think people started to realize, as you saw the replay more and more, that, like, hey, this was kind of serious. Like, this guy, I mean, yes, it was called an out, but this guy could have injured Mookie Betts, and that's not an exaggeration. Like, there were also people saying that, like, this was an exaggeration, and that oh, hey, this is just Yankees fans, and, like, it's just part of the game. But, you know, I do think that there was some serious stuff to it, and I do believe, I think I heard Drew Goodman calling in. Am I correct, Kale? Is Drew there? Look, there he is, Drew Goodman, joining us on the podcast. Drew, welcome. Thanks for calling in.
You bet. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Well, look, I'm glad to have you here. We were just talking just a moment ago about the craziness that we saw last night at Yankee Stadium. And so right off the bat, I want to ask your thoughts on this. It's the storyline of the game yesterday between the Yankees and Dodgers, the whole fan exchange between Mookie Betts and the fan kind of, you know, grappling for that baseball. Can I ask, what was your initial reaction? If you were watching that live, or if I'm sure you've seen it, if you weren't watching it live, what was your initial reaction to how the events unfold, and then the kind of reaction after everything kind of settled, after the dust settled on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I watched every pitch, and when it happened, I don't want to say I'm shocked. I'm really shocked by virtually anyone's behavior in this day and age, unfortunately. But that was horrible. There's no place for that. It's terrible. It's one thing if a fan goes to, reach for a ball instinctively, or even reaches over the fence, which you're like, hey, don't do that. In this particular case, I mean, they could have hurt the player. Mookie Betts. I mean, two guys are holding his respective hand and wrist and ripping the ball. There's absolutely no place for it. Those guys should be they're fortunate that no criminal charges were pressed, quite frankly. I understand passion. I'm from New York. I understand rooting hard and wanting desperately your team to do well. That was egregious behavior. And fortunately, at the end of things, Mookie wasn't hurt, number one. Number two, the umpire got it right and, placed the runner at second base. But it's horrible behavior, and those guys should be banned, for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest shocks to me, the biggest surprises for me, was the reaction to a lot of people, especially in the National Baseball media, of how kind of nonchalant it was. I mean, Joe Davis, like I just said, he kind of made a joke about it on the broadcast, and then afterwards, people were almost celebrating the behavior as like, hey, they're out there fighting for their team and whatnot. And I agree with you. If Mookie had hyperextended his elbow or his wrist had gotten sprained, this would be a totally different conversation. And it's fortunate that it didn't happen that way. But at the same time, I think Major League Baseball had seen kind of that reaction and realized, oh, this is not a good look for us. And so I did see reports coming out today saying that those fans were no longer allowed. Apparently, one of them was a season ticket holder. They're no longer allowed to come to Yankees games, at least for the remainder of this year. I would be surprised to see, if that moves forward into next year. But, so it looks like there's going to be some consequences. But it took a second for Major League Baseball to kind of get around to that.
Well, I don't know if it took a second. I mean, it happened last night, and here we are. Obviously on the East Coast, it's early afternoon.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it didn't take long for the powers that be to say, absolutely not. Those two folks can't be admitted to the ballpark, certainly tonight, and hopefully, going forward. As I said, I'm from New York. There's no shortage of Yankee fans. There's no shortage of people who are going to replace those prized tickets as season ticket holders, if you will. I'm not shocked, though, to your original statement on people applauding poor behavior. I'll allow that maybe some people didn't see it in the slow motion replay who perhaps were in the stadium. But once they did, come on, man. There's a time and place, but we too frequently now have seen the celebration of bad behavior on a grander scale. So nothing surprises me anymore.
Unfortunately not. And look, Dodgers fans have also had their fair share of unfortunate kind of, embarrassing moments as a fan base. But look, I want to talk about some of the positive stuff around this World Series. They made it interesting. Got to hit a quick break, though, before we keep going. But after the break, want to ask some of your thoughts on just some of the other storylines around the World Series. So we'll get to that in just a moment. But before we do, got to give a shout out to our friends over at Coors Light, because look, right now, it's an awesome time. If you're into light beer, it's an awesome time to check out our friends over at Coors Light. They're really everywhere. Not only can you enjoy Coors Light, of course, whenever you go to a Rockies game, you've got the rooftop bar, you've got Coors Light anywhere whenever you're at Coors Field. But you can enjoy Coors Light wherever you are. You come to the DNVR bar, you go out to a football game, even if you're just on the porch hanging out with some friends, Coors Light is truly the best, most refreshing light beer. So make the most out of the times you choose to chill by choosing Coors Light. Embrace that chill mindset. And also, you can get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instant Cart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Please celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company in Golden, Colorado. Also, got to give a shout out to our friends over at Empire Today. Look, if you're trying to get your floors redone, Empire Today, they redid our floors here in the studio. I can tell you from experience, we completely destroy this studio every single day. We're moving chairs around. Kale's in here throwing stuff in between shows. Like it's a moving set.
You're right.
all
I'm
the
the
time.
Worst. I'm actually actively taking a sledgehammer to it every day.
We are.
And it really holds up.
It does. It does hold up. And that's because Empire Today, they're the best at what they do. And that is installing great, incredible floors. And it's not just the floor installation that's great. They work with you on quality service, speed. You can, use their virtual floor designer to take a picture of your living space. You can see what that floor is going to look like in there. They really do it all. So you can schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners to this show can receive a $350 off discount when you use promo code DNVR. Restrictions apply. See EmpireToday.com/DNVR for details. All right, here, back on the DNVR Rockies podcast, Rockies TV play-by-play voice, Drew Goodman, on the show with us. And Drew, you had just said you're watching the World Series intently. This has been, I think, coming into this World Series, it was touted as possibly one of the biggest World Series matchups we've seen in recent history. The storylines can sell themselves. The ratings have been incredible. But from what we've seen in the first few games, it had been kind of a dud. Look, Freddie Freeman has been incredible. The Dodgers pitching has been superb. But the rest of the World Series has just been kind of really very one-sided. So it was nice to see, for baseball's sake, the Yankees kind of show up last night and give the series some life. Do you think the Yankees have what it takes, though, to make this a really interesting series by getting a win here tonight with Garrett Cole on the mound?
I hope so. As a fan of baseball, and as you articulated, coming in, this was a much anticipated series. You have the two most iconic franchises and brands, certainly in baseball, and in the case of the Yankees, from a global standpoint, they may be number one worldwide. Man United, I'm sure, is up there. Arsenal, but the brand, the New York Yankees, is at the top of the food chain, and not too far behind the Los Angeles Dodgers, especially given the presence of Shohei Ohtani, and certainly to a lesser extent some of the other Japanese players that have been on their roster over the last couple of decades. So yes, it was much anticipated. The Dodgers had played exceedingly well, or better than the Yankees in the first three. So as a fan of baseball, number one, I do want to see an elongated series. I did want to see the Yankees prevail last night. I didn't want to see it a four-game sweep. And so I would, again, second your line of thinking, and I hope that at least they get it back to Los Angeles and we get a 6-game series out of it, and greater intrigue, tonight. And certainly it's possible. The best pitcher in this series from a starting capacity is going tonight for the Yankees, and Garrett Cole. I'm getting long-winded here, but I certainly hope that Aaron Boone, who I have great respect for and like a lot, does not pull the plug if he's pitching well or even solidly after 88 pitches, because he's made this thing a battle of the bullpens, and the far superior bullpen is owned by the Los Angeles Dodgers. And so if you're getting 2 and 3 inning starts, as the Yankees have, with the exception of Cole, it becomes a battle of the bullpen, even though the Yankees had greater depth in their rotation entering the series. And we've seen how that's played out. It's a 3-1 lead right now, in favor of the Dodgers. So they have to get a good Garrett Cole tonight, and they have to keep him in there well beyond 88 pitches. If it's 110, 115, so be it. There ain't no tomorrow, as the saying goes.
Oh, yeah. Well, and look, pitching is great, and it has been one of the biggest storylines of this entire World Series, of this entire postseason. And you know plenty well how important good pitching is, but it feels like what's been lacking for the most part for the Yankees has been their bats. Up until last night, they had, they pretty much had only Giancarlo Stanton being like their only guy who was able to consistently get on base for the Yankees, and they were able to turn that around yesterday. But it still feels like they haven't been able to put things together in a cohesive fashion offensively. You've been around the Yankees a lot. You've this year with the team, you've seen them play the Rockies a couple times. What's your thoughts on this Yankees offensive lineup? They have the chance to be one of the best offenses in all of baseball. What's going on that they're not able to kind of pull this together right now?
Well, what's going on is an age-old adage that good pitching beats good hitting every time, and so you're now in the World Series. The Dodgers have thrown out not only quality arms out of the bullpen, but they've gotten quality starts from Flaherty, Yamamoto. Walker Buehler the other day. Good pitching. We see it during the regular season. The league average overall is 243. An alarm, but. that's why the Yankees, in my mind, haven't hit. Now,
Yeah.
Aaron Judge, had a base hit to drive in a run late yesterday, and has had a couple of high quality walks. He spit on some borderline pitches, which was good to see, defining his strike zone a little bit better, less jumpy at the plate. Uh, you know, there's such a heightened focus naturally in October. If you go 1 for 12 during the regular season, that happens to every single player multiple times, no matter how talented and gifted they are. And that's what we're seeing from Aaron Judge. Yeah, you hope he gets going. As I said earlier, you hope he gets going because I'd like to see the series, go back to LA and be more compelling than it's been through the first few ball games for the most part. But to answer your original question, I think it has more to do with the fact that the Dodgers are tough to hit, and less so about the Yankees' lack of offense or lack of productivity up and down that lineup. Good pitching beats good hitting. It's that simple.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Well, and look, I've been getting this comment to me a lot from Rockies fans who are watching this World Series and seeing the struggles that the Yankees have had up until last night. The common narrative that keeps kind of getting thrown my way is that the 2007 Rockies World Series team, if they played this current Yankees team right now, would be able to win the World Series. What are your thoughts on that? You were there, obviously, in 2007, kind of, soaking in all of that experience. Do you think that the 2007 Rockies could have matched up with this Yankees team right now in the World Series?
I think it's kind of it's a loaded question. It's somewhat of an unfair,
It is.
Not just question, but it's unfair to kind of compare errors. And I know you say, what is errors? This happened only, a handful of years ago. It was 17 years ago. But it's still, the game's played a little differently. There is a huge reliance on the long ball. There's less of a contact approach. You have more arms coming out of the bullpen in the middle innings that blow 100 miles an hour. The Rockies, I say this all the time. In two sports in particular, I've said this quite a bit recently on my podcast, and that is that baseball and hockey just get in the tournament. The NBA, there's a hierarchy. The best teams typically are going to be around late. That's why you don't see many 8 seeds upsetting 1 seeds in the NBA. The NFL, it's a one and out deal, but typically the best teams are going to be around in the AFC and NFC championship games, and thusly the Super Bowl. Baseball's different. Just get in the tournament. Why we've seen wild card champions, that. And the Rockies were really, really hot in 07. They were a good team. You don't win 90-plus games if you're not a good team. The Rockies were a very good team. And then they got hot, as we know. I don't know how it would have matched up with the Yankees this year, but they deserved to win the National League pennant that year. And Boston was better. Boston was the better team at the end of the day. This Yankee team is flawed, though. This Yankee team has issues. I mean, every team has its warts, right? But this Yankee team, they don't have a deep bullpen. Outside of Garrett Cole, they're not elite in terms of their rotation. I don't think they're a great defensive team. They have, they don't have a true number one catcher. So that you can point out a lot of flaws, especially when a team is down 3-1. So and I even say that about the Dodgers. I don't think the Dodgers are a great defensive team. You have Tommy Edman playing out of position at shortstop, and he's had a great postseason. My goodness, right? Especially with the bat.
Sure.
But Max Muncy's not a great defender. So you can point to spots and go, they're not superior at every position. But overall, it's fun to talk about, how the 07 Rockies would do. But the conclusion I would have there is the Rockies were really good in 07. The Yankees obviously are deserving of being champions of the American League. But just getting the tournament is always my battle cry when it comes to baseball and hockey.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, no, and that's a loaded question, so I appreciate you rolling the punches with me on that one. You're talking about the flaws of the Yankees. The other thing too that I've seen so much of, in the words of John Sterling, the broadcaster for the Yankees run the bases like a bunch of drunks, and that has come back to hurt them time and time again. So it's look, I hope it's going to continue to be a fun series, but. Got another big must-win game, obviously, tonight that they got to get through. I do want to transition, though. Gonna have some Rockies topics here in just a moment. Got to hit another break. But after the break, want to ask a little bit about this Charlie Blackmon retirement. The send-off for him and kind of the hole that leaves in the Rockies lineup moving forward. So we'll talk about that when we come back from break here. But before we get into that, got to give a shout out to our friends over at Game Time, because there has never been a better time to be a fan of any sport than right now. And with the Game Time app, you can get affordable tickets faster than ever. And look, we all know, and I've said it so many times on this show, if you want to get the cheapest tickets possible to a games, whether it's Broncos games, Nuggets, Avs, or even Rockies when they come back to play, next year, or even theater events or whatever you're into, Game Time app has you covered. As you wait closer and closer to that Game Time start, the tickets get cheaper. They've got incredible features on their Game Time app that help make it easier to get tickets in the best way possible. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create an account, redeem code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Also, got to give a shout out to our friends over at Toyota, because Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR and, of course, also the official vehicle of the Rockies. And Toyota is truly the best. I have a Toyota. My family has Toyotas. We've had Toyotas for my entire life. They last forever. My Toyota has 250,000 miles, and it's still kicking. And really, whatever you're into, when you're going to get a car, whether you're into hybrids, trucks, SUVs, whatever your thing is, especially here in Colorado. The winter's coming up. The weather's getting a little colder. Toyota has vehicles for you. They offer so many different makes and models with all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, like the Epic 4Runner, Tacoma, the RAV4, which is the car that I'm looking at getting once my 2007 Highlander is finally done. They've got a bunch of different options that you can choose from. So visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota East in Aurora, Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. All right. Probably one of the biggest stories of last season, from a fan perspective at least, was Charlie Blackmon's retirement. And I've been meaning to have you on the show for a while now, Drew, because you've had the privilege of getting to watch Charlie progress through pretty much his entire career with the Rockies. And it's such a unique aspect of Charlie Blackmon, the fact that he played with the Rockies for his entire career, similar to Todd Helton, and some of the things that we talk about with Helton and Blackmon and their overlapping legacies that they leave. But I wanted to ask you, just right off the top, first and foremost, you've had the privilege of calling games for Blackmon for a long time. What's one of your favorite or some of your favorite memories that you had, whether it be on field, off field, whatever it is, with Charlie, just getting to see the type of player that he is on and off the field?
Yeah, I guess I would begin with something that's not original in conversing about Charlie, and especially as we put a period on his wonderful career. He played 14 years all in one place. And, when he came up, he was originally a second-round pick. It wasn't as if he was Condon, who, so many people, had going in the first couple of picks of the draft, and he slipped to number 3 to the Rockies. And when he does get to the big leagues, it's going to be a big deal. Charlie Blackmon was not that celebrated a prospect, and he turned himself into, a hell of a player. And so it begins with his work ethic, which, I think virtually any professional athlete has to have, a good work ethic and great talent to get to the highest level of professional sport. And in the case of Charlie, he had, requisite talent, but he had an absolute elite work ethic, and that never faded to the final day he played. In fact, I kiddingly, here's a story for you. Earlier in the week, I said, "All right, buddy, I got to know. Are you going to lift? Because he was notorious for lifting after the game. And some players do that. They'll actually, even though they're there many hours early, as you're well aware, some guys prefer to lift after the ball game, late at night. If the game goes 3.5 hours, they're still going to get their lift in afterward. Charlie was one of those guys who preferred to lift after the game. And last year, after game 162, he went in the weight room before he met the media. And the season's over. I mean, he's going home. He's going home to Atlanta. He's probably going, after spending some time with his family, he was going fishing somewhere. Or as he likes to say, get off the grid. Because I know on a couple of occasions when I've gone to reach him in the off season, he gets back a couple of weeks later and he said, yeah, I was off the grid. And he literally means that. He's hiking and hunting somewhere and he's no cell phone basically or cell service. But I asked him that last week, are you going to lift after your final game? He's announced his retirement. It's done. It's over. And he smiled, which is hard to get him to do, prior to a ball game because he's locked in. And he said, no, not lifting after Sunday's game. So, I just think about the work ethic. I think about the commitment. I think about, I impart this not only to my 3 boys who are young men now. I impart this to kids I've coached at the high school level, that in whatever your vocation is or avocation, truly, get the most out of your talent, because that will always allow you, when you get longer in the tooth, to put your head on the pillow and say, yeah, you know what, I got the most out of my ability in whatever it is. And Charlie can clearly put his head on the pillow, not only looking back and seeing, wonderful statistics, but knowing that he got the absolute most out of his talent. And that's a great feeling, man. It's a gratifying feeling. It's a satisfying feeling. And so that's where I always begin when asked about Charlie Blackmon.
Yeah, no, and that's such a important piece, especially today. I mean, there are so many guys in baseball or professional sports who, obviously you got to work hard, you got to earn it to get there. But there's a lot of guys who are born with just some natural talent and ability, and you could even say take it for granted at times. Charlie Blackmon was never that guy. He was born with some talent and natural ability, but he also worked really hard to get himself to the place that he ended up being, and then stay there, and continue. And, he talked about, the word consistency and wanting to be consistent every single time he showed up on the baseball field. And there's no doubt anyone who played with him, worked with him, even saw him play can say that he was a consistent force for the Rockies. I know he's going to be missed. And look, now the attention shifts away from, a legacy guy like Charlie Blackmon to where are we going to go as a franchise, in kind of replacing him in a way. And I wouldn't even use the word replacing him because you can't ever replace Charlie Blackmon, but filling in the gaps, because the Rockies now are in this youth movement that we're kind of looking at. And so, there's going to be some need to have some veterans kind of step up into that leadership role. And from your perspective, from being in the clubhouse, from being around some of those guys, is there anyone in particular that stands out to you as a guy that's going to just naturally, you think, step up next year to kind of fill in that role that Charlie played last year?
I think the first name that jumps to mind is, from a position player standpoint, would be Ryan McMahon, because he's the most tenured Rocky among position players. He certainly had a solid career, and he's well respected. He posts up every day, which I think is really important. I mean, to be a leader, you have to be a guy that's out there all the time. And, I know Ryan the last couple of years has not had, great second halves. He was a first-time All-Star this year, and it was deserved. But he's a guy that's well respected in the clubhouse. He plays with great humility. And as I said, he shows up and is in the lineup every day despite, whatever may ail him. And that's really important to him. So he would be a natural guy. From a pitcher standpoint, Kyle Freeland is another natural, because, Kyle is a guy that also is well respected in that clubhouse. He's a tough guy. He's a passionate guy, as I think all fans realize. And the third name that I'll throw at you may catch you a little bit by surprise, and I think it's going to be, an ongoing type of evolution, if you will, for this guy to be looked upon as one of the true leaders of the club, and that's Ezequiel Tovar. And Tovar will be going into his third year. We know how gifted he is, both offensively and defensively. And he the first thing, I'm sure, a reaction from some people as well, does he speak English well enough? Well, his English has come along, quite a bit. He's a very sharp kid. He's a very passionate kid in terms of work ethic. And he also posts up every day. So I think you're going to start to see Ezequiel Tovar, maybe not this year. Everybody goes, yep, that's the Rockies. But I think over the next couple of years moving forward, people will go, yeah, that's Tovar's team, or, Tovar's one of the leaders in that clubhouse. So those are the three guys that, jump to mind, right out of the gate with your question. And other guys could emerge also as they become productive and comfortable big leaguers. But I think it has to be beyond just, who puts up the best stats. It has to be how you prepare every day. And that's why Charlie, who oftentimes didn't say a lot and picked his spots to make a point to a younger player or maybe to a group of players, but it was just how he went about his business and how he worked and how he prepared every single day, even after he had accomplished a great deal.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And you could go down the list of those guys, and all of them deserve it of, that veteran leadership role in the clubhouse. And that's going to be important for the Rockies if they want to be successful next year, because you have so many guys that are young and don't have that big league time yet, or haven't even really fully earned their spot on the team. And so to have some guys on there that have locked in their position and can lead by example, that's really important. And, I want to we got to hit one last break here, but after the break, I want to ask you, which current player that's on the team right now do you think has the biggest impact on the Rockies' future? So kind of mill that over. We're also going to hit a couple of super chats after the break, but going to hit this last break and then we'll go into that. But got to give a shout out to our friends over at Raising Cane's, because Raising Cane's, if you're like me and you're getting hungry because it's lunchtime, Raising Cane's is a no-brainer. They are the best place to go for craveable, hand-battered chicken fingers. They are truly the best. And I say this to Kale every single time I do this read. It makes me so hungry this time of day. Every time we talk about Raising Cane's, I want to just jump in the car and go drive down the street and pick some up. There's a lot of Raising Cane's locations around you here in Denver, so you've got plenty of choices to choose from. And you can also order up some chicken fingers. They've got crinkle cut fries, buttery Texas toast. They've got their secret cane sauce. They are truly the best of the best when it comes to some fast cooked to order food. So Raising Cane's, turbocharge your chicken fingers and get them even faster by ordering online at raisingcanes.com or through their mobile app. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. We also need to share some love with our friends over at Premier Members Credit Union. If you're like me, you're always trying to stay on top of your money, get ahead with your money, and that's why I truly recommend Premier Members Credit Union. They're a financial institution based right here in Colorado. And look, the best thing about Premier Members Credit Union is they are so friendly and so personable. You're not going into this really corporate, super fancy setting where you feel intimidated to go talk about finances. They're just like you and me. They just know a lot about how to manage your money. And so they can help you with whatever your goals, whether you're looking to get into saving, investing, planning for retirement, whatever you're trying to do financially. PMCU is all about creating a better banking experience for their communities. So why not see what they can do for you? Check out becomepremier.com to learn more. All right, got to hit a couple super chats here right off the top. Andrew Wolf says, for you, Drew, appreciate your years and dedication. Shout out to Andrew for giving a shout out to you, Drew. And then also got to give some love to our buddy Burge, who's always a listener and viewer here at DNVR. But he asked a question. He says, obviously, he is reducing payroll, but has Montfort given any indication that he is increasing the size and staff of the Rockies analytics department? From my perspective, I haven't heard anything about that. Drew, do you have any thoughts on Burge's super chat here?
In terms of the analytics department, which is run by Brian Jones, who I have immense respect for, I don't know what the immediate plans are for this coming off season. I guess obviously we're in the midst of this off season, so I can't. I'm not able to address that specifically as to whether they're adding people or not right now.
Yeah, and look, and it's a situation where, there's going to be a lot of moves in the offseason, changes, whether it be just from a player standpoint, and so we'll keep you guys posted as anything comes up right now. It's part of the conversation when, you're a team that's hoping to continue in this rebuilding process to get to a winning season next year. Things are going to be moving around. We've got, a draft that we're paying attention to in the not so near future, and just a lot of moving pieces right now. So hopefully this is an exciting offseason for us to have a lot of things to talk about and a lot of things to look forward to next year. And look, I did a Rockies roundtable yesterday, talked to a couple really good reporters that cover the Rockies, and I was saying, I'm actually I know it's challenging coming off back-to-back 100-loss seasons. Obviously the fans want to see the Rockies get to a place where they're winning again. And I can also say that I think for the first time in at least a few years, there's a lot of excitement, at least in my perspective, of the players that we can look forward to next year, because you're in a position right now where I think there is one of the best minor league pitching rotations in all of baseball that the Rockies have right now that could be set to start making its way into the big league level. You've got Dollander, Sullivan, just to name a few. You've got, Palmquist, Yanquiel Fernandez. Like, there's so many guys in this minor league rotation, both defensively, offensively, and pitching, that we have to look forward to. And also, we've got guys on the roster right now that are still so young and could possibly be getting into their full stride here in the next year or two. And so it leads me to my question that I asked before the break, Drew, which is, which current player do you think has the potential to have the biggest impact on the Rockies' future? And I have my opinions on this that I'll share right after you answer, but I want to hear what you think on this. Who do you think has the chance to have the biggest impact on the Rockies' future right now on this roster?
So that's somebody who's currently in the big leagues?
Yep, currently in the big leagues on the roster right now. We saw them playing at Coors Field last year at some point for the Rockies.
Well, it's a good question. I would probably answer it off the top of my head this way, that I was pleasantly surprised at the offensive jump that Brenton Doyle was able to make.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the best stories that emanates from the 2024 season. In the same breath that I compliment Brenton Doyle and say, hey, there's probably more in there going forward. Can he be a 30-30 guy that's on base at a 325 clip? A year ago, if you and I were chatting, I'd say, well, I don't see that. I mean, I've seen elite defender. He ought to win his second Gold Glove. I know you've talked about it, the fact that he won a Fielding Bible Award already for his play in center field this past year. But Brenton Doyle has a chance to truly be a superstar. And the other person I would throw in that grouping right now, clearly Ezekiel Tovar. I want to see him cut down on a strikeout rate, as Doyle was able to do from his freshman year to his sophomore year, if you will. Michael Toglia. Michael Toglia was one of the best stories that came out of 2024. He still strikes out at probably too high a rate, but his walk rate, especially in the second half, went up tremendously, well above league average, and he impacts the baseball when he squares it up. So could Michael Toglia be a plus defender at first who also hits 35 home runs a year? You can see that. You can see that. And also in the realm of a Christian Walker and a Paul Goldschmidt, a guy that's able to steal important bags periodically, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to steal 30, but can he get 15 important bags during the year? I think without question.
Yeah.
So those three guys naturally come to mind. If I could now take your question and delve into the minor leagues in terms of guys that, because at the end of the day, the only thing that's important is the one loss column. Chase Dollander has a chance to be an upper echelon starting pitcher. Now, you have to go and do it. We know that. But he has the stuff that suggests he can do it. And we know, going back to our conversation of 20, 30 minutes ago about the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Dodgers pitching being so good so far, it's hurt the Yankees offense. Well, you have to have elite pitching, and you got to have a ton of it. The Dodgers been decimated by injuries, but they have such depth that they're able to overcome, and that's why they're on the precipice of winning a world championship. The other element of the Rockies that really gives me hope going forward is the emergence of 5 or 6 young arms that are really good in that bullpen, and that's how you ultimately turn things around. So specific to one guy, it's going to take a collection of guys.
Yeah.
But Doyle, I think, has a chance to be a superstar. Tovar has a chance. Not to say there isn't room for improvement with both of those young guys, and and Tolia, what we saw. But we're going to have to see impact from some of those arms that you and I both have mentioned, and I know you've talked quite a bit about on your podcast.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more on all of those names. I talked about it last night with Kevin Henry, of Just Baseball, and saying that Dollander is he's got to be your next Paul Skeens. There's that kind of expectation. I wanted to throw a little bit of a kind of a curveball of an answer in for this same question of which current player do I think could possibly have the biggest impact on the Rockies' future. I'm going to go as far as to say Nolan Jones. Now, Nolan Jones had a really challenging year this year. He was dealing with injuries. He was dealing with the birth of his first child, and he just couldn't quite find his stride. But especially how good Nolan Jones can be when he is playing at his peak level of baseball. He's an elite outfielder, an elite bat, probably one of the best arms in baseball from the outfield. He has the potential to be an all-star if he is playing at his full potential. And I have this world in which I live in where the Rockies have a lineup that starts with Doyle, Tovar, McMahon, Jones, and Tolia. And if all 5 of those guys in a perfect world are playing at their at a high clip for what they can play at, that's a good lineup, right? That's aside from pitching and aside from, defense, all of those other factors, that's a good starting 5 lineup that the Rockies could throw out there if those guys are playing really well. I think Doyle is going to play, I think he's on the up and up. Tovar obviously on the up and up. McMahon, he needs to bounce back a little bit offensively, but he's still an incredible player. We already talked about Tolia. Jones is that X factor to me that I think if he can find a way to get back to his freshman year type of play, he is going to be insanely impactful for the Rockies' ability to win moving forward.
There's no doubt that Nolan Jones is really gifted, and we saw it in 2023 when he went 2020, when he had a well above 900 OPS over, beyond just a small sample size. So, yes, it is in there. He's coming off a season in which he got better late, but I think he only hit 3 home runs. He dealt with some injuries. He's tough on himself, and this sport, from a mental standpoint, is really, really difficult, as I think all people who follow baseball closely realize. It is really tough because you're dealing with so much failure and disappointment. Look at Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is a Hall of Famer, and he struggled in the postseason, and self-doubt creeps in, and you're dealing with expectations. And I'm sure Nolan Jones, coming off that great 2023 season, say, all right, man, I've arrived. I'm going to take the 2020 and make it 30-30, and I'm going to become one of the best players in baseball. And then all of a sudden, you get dinged up a little bit, you get off to a slow start, and then all of a sudden that starts, heading things in the wrong direction, and then you get in your own head. He's not the first one, and he's not going to be the last one to deal with, some success and then have a setback. So, yes, he has the ability to be really impactful. Let's see how it plays out. I'm rooting for him. I love the guy. I love the guy personally. But it's got to happen. And I was, cautiously optimistic that it can turn around again for him based on how he finished the season. It wasn't a ball of fire, but I thought the at bats were of a higher quality. The chase went down a little bit. I saw him getting some of his confidence back. But this game robs you of your confidence. I mean, It really does. I mean, I've told this story before on my own podcast that, Mookie Betts, who's a future Hall of Famer and, tremendously successful baseball player, not to mention a terrific person. And he was in the World Series in 2020. And he had a good World Series, but he had a particular game where I think he was, 0 for his first 3, and he's up in the cage when he comes in defensively because he had enough time between the bats. And he was texting, somebody that's close to him that I know well, because he was like, "Hey, what are you seeing? Here's a guy in the middle of the World Series who's, who's been an MVP, again, a future Hall of Famer." And he's like, what's going on? And that's what this game does to you. It drives you crazy. And so Nolan Jones, has to continue to become, mentally strong enough to deal with the injuries physically, but the ebb and flow of a season. And I'm a big fan, like you are, of his. So I agree with you ultimately that if they can get Nolan going again, as Doyle continues to rise, as Tovar continues to rise, that's a good starting point. They need others. I think honestly that, and this is not a shot at Ryan McMahon. I love Ryan McMahon. In a perfect world, Ryan McMahon on a really good team for the Rockies is that Gold Glove defender who probably hits 6th or 7th in the lineup.
Yeah.
And is not necessarily your 3-hole hitter. So we'll see how it plays out. They have a lot of young position players that have yet to arrive fully. Jordan Beck got a big taste this year. We'll see what he does with his experience, and some of the names again that you talk about on your podcast that are not too far away.
Yeah, it's all coming right around the corner. I mean, it feels like in the blink of an eye, it's going to be February, and we're going to be getting ready for spring training. Look, we've only got a couple minutes left, but I wanted to ask. I mean, you're in off-season mode now. What does the off-season look like for you, man? I mean, I'm sure it's a very stark contrast from the grind of the regular season. What do these next few months look like for you?
You know what? I do enjoy this time of year from a standpoint of, you catch your breath a little bit. And when you get up in the morning, other than, I get your workout out of the way, you're not like starting to grind on the game that night. So it's nice to have free time. I travel quite a bit, see friends, see my boys scattered around the country. And I'll do a little college basketball from a professional standpoint. I do my weekly podcast. In fact, Brian Anderson, a colleague, this week will be part 2 of a lengthy conversation.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, 2 guys who like to talk. But gonna have Buddy on coming up soon, and so I enjoy doing that once a week. And as I said, some college hoops and travel. And as you alluded to a moment ago, I always feel like the first few months of the off season, October, November, December, they go at a somewhat leisurely pace. But when it hits January 1st, it's like pedal to the metal. And the next time you look up, it's opening day, wherever that may be, and the season starting.
Yeah.
It's like January 1st, then you're spring training. That goes quickly, and boom, you're into the middle of the season. But this time of year, I really enjoy. I'm I love football, and so I love moving around and watching football, and so that's kind of what I'm doing.
Nice. Yeah, I love it. I know. It's crazy. College basketball season is like already here, it feels like. I mean, my first game is on November 4th. I'm sure you've got some coming up. I mean, it's like you blink, and then next thing you know, it's basketball, and then, baseball's right around the corner. So, Drew, thanks again, man. I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us, this Wednesday afternoon. Enjoy some downtime this offseason, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, anytime. Appreciate you having me on, and continued success with all the work you're doing, cranking it out.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Drew Goodman, Rockies TV play-by-play voice. That's going to do it for us. Appreciate you guys hanging out in the chat with us today. This has been the DNVR Rockies Podcast. We'll see you guys on Friday at 12:15 for our last show of the week. Enjoy the World Series, everyone. We'll see you next time.
We all silly like the mayor.